compact vans have no problems with corrosion resistance. There are no complaints about the condition of its body parts. At the end of 2006, the model underwent restyling, during which the face received the most noticeable changes. Of the equipment, only the power windows and air conditioning system can be disturbed. Failures of the air conditioning compressor have been noted. Moreover, if the car was regularly serviced at a company service even after the end of the warranty, then VW, represented by domestic dealers, replaces the failed air conditioner parts free of charge. The Touran has petrol and diesel engines in its arsenal, and each of them is quite possible to see in a car. According to the mechanics of the branded service station, among gasoline units, the time-tested 8-valve 1.6-liter MPI turned out to be the most trouble-free. An engine of the same volume, but with direct fuel injection FSI is less reliable. It has a failure of the timing chain hydraulic tensioner, as well as problems with the chain itself, which can stretch to 120 to 150,000 kilometers. There were also cases of the timing chain slipping, which led to a fatal meeting of the valves with the pistons. The 2.0L FSI engine is free of such problems. The timing belt is driven by a belt. Its peculiarity is that the belt does not maintain the service life of 180,000 prescribed by the manufacturer, so motorists advise reducing this period to 90,000 kilometers. In this engine, there was a break in the factory exhaust system corrugations. 2 pieces are used. A characteristic weak point of all FSI units is that individual ignition coils can fail. 1.4L TSI engines equipped with turbo and mechanical compressors are prone to eating oil. If the appetite is within 3 to 4 liters between service oil changes, this is considered the norm. I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carme.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what breaks and at what mileage, any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with, and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on carme.pro. Of the diesel units, the 1.9-liter engine is more reliable. In the 2.0-liter turbo diesel, failures of the fuel injectors were noted. However, the manufacturer replaces low-quality parts under warranty. Otherwise, the fuel equipment of diesel fuel units digests our diesel fuel quite well. The turbochargers themselves also last a long time. A feature of VW diesels, for example, compared to the same French engines, is a long warm-up time in the winter. To avoid discomfort, experts recommend additionally installing an autonomous engine preheater. Warming the radiator of the cooling system improves heating slightly. But owners of diesel Tourans praise them for their efficiency. With quiet driving in the city, it is quite possible to achieve 6 liters per 100. The vast majority of cars, even cross-Touran versions, have front-axle drive. All-wheel drive 4-motion variants with an electronically controlled Haldex clutch are considered exotic. For the Touran, a 6-speed manual transmission was offered, with the same number of steps of the Tiptronic automatic transmission. Cars until 2005, 6 and 7-speed DSG robots with 2 clutches and an adaptive program that can adapt to driving style and change the gear shift point, and also has a sport mode. Tiptronic turned out to be the most problem-free. Mechanics can only cause trouble at high mileage. So, after 100,000 kilometers, the dual bearing of the gearbox may wear out, manifested by increased operating noise, and in diesel versions, by 150,000 kilometers the dual mass flywheel fails, a characteristic knocking sound when changing gears. DSGs are also unreliable. They have problems with the ECU, which is manifested by jerks when switching. In 6-speed gears, as a rule, when switching from first to second gear, and in 7-speed gears, also when engaging reverse gear. In the best case, at a branded service station, you can carry out self-adaptation of the clutch by flashing the ECU, and if this does not help, you will have to change the worn-out clutch pack. The Touran's serviceable suspension is moderately toned and provides the compact van with almost car-like stability and tractable handling. Structurally, the chassis is similar to the co-platform Golf V, McPherson in front, multi-link in the rear. There is a stabilizer bar on both axles. On our roads, the chassis has proven itself to be durable. So, in the front suspension, the rear silent blocks of the front levers were out the fastest, after 80,000 kilometers, and the stabilizer struts can last about 100,000 kilometers, the front silent blocks up to 140,000 kilometers. The service life of ball joints is almost 200,000 kilometers. In the rear multi-link, by 100,000 kilometers, the bushings and stabilizer struts changed separately from it, and the bump stops of the rear shock absorbers may require replacement. By 120 to 150,000 kilometers, the rubber bands of the rear camber arms were out. The original assembled spare part costs about 450 UAH. And the remaining silent blocks of the rear levers are capable of withstanding a mileage of about 200,000 kilometers. Wheel bearings also last a long time, but when the time comes to replace them, you will have to fork out money. They are replaced only assembled with the hubs, both branded and non-original. The rack and pinion steering was equipped with an electric booster. Cars of the first years of production, 2004 to 2006, were distinguished by short-lived engagement of the rack and electric motor, whereas manifested by a characteristic knock. Later the unit was modernized, eliminating this problem. Tie rod ends are capable of running 100 to 150,000 kilometers, and the rods themselves are even longer. A characteristic weak point of all FSI units is the failure of individual ignition coils. And engines with a volume of 1.4 and 1.6 liters also cause timing chain stretching, as well as failure of the hydraulic tensioner. Manual transmissions can only be a problem at high mileage. In DSG, problems are caused by a software failure in the control unit. Possible problem with the power windows: when you close the glass, it then goes down on its own. Basically, the problem is solved by reflashing the control brains.